Hey there, this is Madeline with Unplugged Family, and I am here at Mommy Talk Live. Thank you, Mommy Talk Live, for letting us be on this platform. And today we're going to talk about connection, connecting with your teens, connecting with your children. We all have those times where we feel that distance between our kids and us, and we can't reach them. We want to connect with them. We have I was coaching mom the other day, and she was telling me that her son, her 15-year-old, is upstairs in the computer all the time, and when she calls him down to come to dinner or to be have family time, he's being dragged down there. And so when he comes down, then there's that disconnection, right? So today I am so thrilled to have Keith Dorst with us. Did I pronounce that right?
Pretty close, yep.
Okay, I'll say it. Please say your name.
Dorst.
Okay, Keith Dorst. He is a psychologist who created an amazing tool called Meaningful Talk. With this tool, you will show you how you will be able to create a moment or moments of connection with your teens and children. All right. So let me tell you that again. This is Unplugged Family, and we're here to talk about connection. Now I'm gonna let Keith explain. Keith, tell us who you are and what you're doing. He is a marriage and family counselor, so he does counsel families and married couples online or in person. He's in Colorado. So tell us about who you are and what made you create this amazing tool. Because let me tell you guys, I've used it with my husband. I used it with my child, and it was I had absolute breakthrough. And both with my daughter, it was truly a sweet getting to know us time. With my husband, it was a major breakthrough. And I'll tell you, Keith, about that, because I'm still giddy. And I'm still like, I need to do this over and over again. So tell us, who are you and why are we here?
All right. Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be here with you and to talk to your audience on this important topic of connection. I've been counseling in Colorado Springs for 15 years now. I do a lot of marriage and family counseling. I travel to families. I do very little actually in town. I do a lot online, and I do a lot going to families. Sometimes I've gone and counseled 37 people in the same family. Great grandparents, grandkids, getting everybody on the same page, getting everybody connected. It's just a lot of fun. The more people, the more complicated, the better it is. Because I've come across something. I've just been very fortunate that when I moved here from Canada to do counseling, I learned some techniques that I just saw relationships changing very quickly. And for a couple of years, I would see these incredible results. And it wasn't until probably 6 years into it where I figured out why it was working so well. And that all came about because, I've been married to Nancy for 23 years, just celebrated 23rd anniversary, and we have 6 children. My oldest is our son, and he's 22, and then we've got 5 daughters after that. One of my daughters, at a young age, younger than 2, started developing seizures, and they would last up to an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes before at the hospital they're finally knocking her out with adult level dosage of drugs and pretty scary things. And we took her a lot of different places to get to the root of it. And we took her to a functional neurologist studying the brain and how it functions. And we gave him the symptoms of her seizures, saying that they last super long. They are always around sleep, either right when she falls asleep or when she wakes up, she'll go into a seizure. She's always hungry a couple days before. She'll just camp out at the fridge wanting snacks all the time. And she'll have eye pain where she'll have to wear sunglasses even on a cloudy day because it hurts her eyes. And this functional neurologist says, well, those are all functions of the brain stem, that part of you that is for life and survival, food, sleep, vision. Those are all brainstem things. And he said, if your daughter has a weak brainstem, she won't be able to raise her eyebrows. Now, nobody knew that. I didn't know that. He said to her, raise your eyebrows. And she did this, tilting her head back, mouth open, but no eyebrow movement. He says, see, her brainstem is weak. It can't raise her eyebrows. Then he said, now the brain only responds to input. So we have to give it input to the brainstem, and then it will act the way it's supposed to. And there's a nerve in the face that goes right back to the brainstem. So he took a Kleenex, very light, stroked her face twice, which stimulated the nerve, went to the brainstem. Now he said, raise your eyebrows. And she went, and they moved up a little bit. He said, now keep doing that 3 times a day. Stroke her face twice. That's all the input you need. Do it 3 times a day. And she will eventually develop wrinkles in her forehead, and the strength will get bigger. When you give the brain the right input, it will function the way it's supposed to. So I started thinking about counseling. What's going on in my counseling office that I'm seeing people extend love to one another, wanting to understand another? And I realized there was a brain connection being made, and that there's parts of the brain, just like my daughter's brainstem was important for her issues. Our relationships run on our brain, and we're now born with equal brains. And sometimes along the way in life, our brains get banged and injured and traumatized, and they don't function. So that will impact your relationships. But there's relationship circuitry in your brain. Yes.
You're talking about emotional trauma too, right? You're saying physical and emotional trauma can...
Absolutely, yeah. So I work with 2 types of trauma, A trauma and B trauma. B is what we typically think of as trauma. B is for bad. What are the bad things that happened that I wish hadn't? Like maybe any of the abuses, physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual, verbal, car accidents, being beat up, being bullied. Those can be bad things that happen. But then there's also A trauma, which is absent. So what was missing in life growing up? Maybe a sense of security, maybe a sense of wanting to be known by others, a sense of uniqueness. If you're just in a family where everyone's being controlled and dominated, you don't develop an identity. So who am I? And there's identity issues. So 2 types of trauma, and they are run and healed through repatterning of the brain and strengthening of different circuitry. So, in relationships, we are hurt in relationships, and
all the time.
Health will only come through a relational positive experience. I can't give you a book to solve your relationship problem. Books only help you if you're ignorant. So there's 5 levels of pain, and depending on how much pain you're in is how much brain resource you have. The more pain, stress that comes on you, it's like an electrical grid where this just powers off, this powers off, and ultimately you're left in kind of a fight or flight mode. But depending on what level of pain you're in determines what level of support or resource you need to improve and get healthy in the area of relationships. So the mildest form of pain for people is confusion. And that would be, hey, what time is that Facebook Live with Unplugged Family today? And all you have to do is go back to the post and read it, or go to an email and read it. And that information, that data solves that pain. And you go on in life, not traumatized by it, never thinking of it again. But after that level of pain, information does nothing. And the problem is most of the resources people go to are information, whether it's a talk, a book, a blog, an article, a seminar. It's all information. Most people are not at that mild level of pain. A lot of them are all the way over here, where the greatest pain is of being alone, which is disconnected. I'm alone. And alone is only solved by experience, connection with someone who loves you. And getting to that place of connection, we need a lot of help to get there sometimes, to feel connected. And that's where Meaningful Talk came from. I was asking, how can I take what I see happening so powerfully in my counseling office and make it available to more people? And God just downloaded this idea, and I've been working on it ever since. And it stimulates the brain, turns on the circuits. There's so much behind it.
So let's explain to our audience, what is it? So sure. This is how it came about.
Yeah.
And so you wanted to replicate what was happening in your counselor room, but not everybody can get to your counselor room or afford you, correct?
Right.
Although you are a licensed counselor and you counsel people online, so we will have his website set up there. It's counselorkeith.com, so you can actually talk to Keith and set up a session, personal session with him. But the Meaningful Talk is a tool that will be able to reach a lot more people and make it even more personal. Let me tell you how I used it recently. Well, I used it myself, right? Mm-hmm. And I told you that I had a getting to know you sweet little session with my 10-year-old. It was, well, one session was when I was your age. Actually, yeah, when I was your age. So she got to know things about me she didn't know, like that I lived through an amazing, horrific earthquake in Guatemala. And then I got to know, things about her and, a little queen bee issue that we've had years and years ago still lingering. So I realized, oh, I still need to deal with that, right? And I realized, okay, she likes horses more than acting. I didn't know that. So to explain the tool itself.
Okay, the tool itself is an online tool that requires a desktop or a laptop to work. That doesn't work with full function on a phone or a tablet, and I'll explain why. So what it is, when you think talk, don't think TED Talk. Don't think it's a 15-minute lecture, because again, people don't need information. So it is a talk. It is getting you back to face-to-face, good old-fashioned face-to-face communication, where you don't have to think about the questions to ask, and you're not going to get triggered by the tone of the person asking the question. So it is when you go to the meaningfultalk.com site and purchase it, you will get a selection of, let's say there are 20 parent and teen conversations, and you'll select the topic, and then like a little video player shows up on the screen, and it will have a question, and it'll say who answers that question. So have your teen answer this question, and then it reads out loud the question, and it has the text of the question on the screen as well. So you're freed up to sit and, as best as you can, be having eye contact with that person, because that's very important.
Right.
That person who's prompted answers the question, giving the fullest, most honest answer, as open as they can. They give that question. Now, why this is more than just conversation starters is they just say, here's your problem. You don't know the first question to ask. And that's not our problem. We don't know the third, the fourth, the seventh, and we don't know when to time these questions. And
because we get into a fight by second, because of our tone, right? We'll start fighting.
Right. Absolutely. That tone, I was thinking about it more today because we had fireworks last night on July 4th, and they talk about vets who can be traumatized by fireworks going off, because there's that, memory, that traumatic memory of when an explosion went off. People's voices, especially with kids, your parents' voice, a certain tone, your spouse's certain tone can just put you back on your heels. And right there, you've lost connection and the ability to connect. So this tool provides a neutral tone. The voice was actually picked by the group of functional neurologists that worked with my daughter, and I gave them 11 different voices to listen to, and every one of them said, this one is the one we have to use. And it's Wayne Shepherd. He's a great guy, great voice to calm the amygdala, the fear center in the brain. So everything about this is really intentional, so your brain won't get triggered. There is music that I licensed by the pianist of peace, Stanton Lanier, and his music plays in the background. And it's important for our brain that the top level of our brain needs to have music, needs to have closeness to a person, and needs to have a joyful experience for it to be strong. And if the top part, if the trump of the brain, the commander-in-chief of the brain is strong, everything under it will be strong. Your immune system, your brain chemistry, your ability to delay gratification, all those things work. So this tool has music playing in the background.
I need this every day.
We do.
I'm going to start my day with one talk.
Every day with different people. Once a day with your husband, the next day with a daughter, the next day with a teen. We need that connection, because we're building up connection strength, so that the next day when stress hits, there's an upset either in the relationship because they didn't do something you wanted them to do, they left their room a mess, something like that. You're going to stay relational with them because you have that connection. That's what it allows. So this tool has music playing. It has the deep voice of the gentleman reading the question, and you're sitting close because you're on a laptop or a desktop. You're sitting close. You want to be within 3 feet of that person.
Right.
When that happens, positive brain chemistries occur and the brains match each other. And so I've always used music in my counseling. Go ahead.
No, I'm telling you, it is amazingly. I think of myself, my number one strength, I'm a strengths coach, is connection. And I always thought of myself as someone who can easily connect with just about anybody, my family included. But this just brings another layer, like you say, the tone of voice gets in my way big time in my home. Yeah. And with my husband, with my kids, I'm like, but the way I use connection is we give long hugs, like hold it for 20 seconds, let the oxytocin flow.
Yeah.
I was taught by Scott Turansky, mutual
Yeah.
friend of ours, to before, instead of barking out orders and ask them to do tasks without, going to find them, find out what they're doing, right? My son could be reading to his sister. So go find them, touch them, establish relationship, and then ask, and then say, okay, I need the trash out by tonight, So those, I mean, I feel like that's who I am. I've done my work. I try, but I'm telling you, your tool brings things to the next level. It is powerful stuff, and I want the world to know about it. So, tell us then what I guess give us an example of a situation where you've been involved, where somebody's used your tool and they another testimonial.
Let me give you a great story now. I use this technique in counseling all the time, where I have the couple or the parent and the child, parent team, face each other with their chairs, hold hands, and then I give them the question and they repeat it, because you want the muscles working at the same time you're hearing the words, so it makes the biggest imprint in the brain. They repeat the question to their spouse or their child. And so I do this live all the time. And one time, every year, my wife and I get invited into a 9th grade health class in Colorado Springs. And my wife shares her story of how she had an eating disorder at 5. 10 weeks after we were married, she was put in a mental hospital for 4 months to overcome the eating disorder. She was diagnosed permanently disabled, and just all the recovery from that, the healing of relationships. She talks about that. I come in the next day and talk about brain science and relationship and how to talk meaningful ways. And then the teacher says, now I want you to demonstrate with the class. And he picks 2 students. And I say, this is the most hostile environment possible. A grade 9 awkward health class. And I had 2 boys that he gave me, and I had them face their chairs, and I sat just back from them a little bit. And then the rest of the class made a circle around them and was very close. And I just gave this guy a question, and he asked this student. Well, in a matter of a couple questions, found out that this guy was a military family and he moved around a lot. And so I had this guy ask him, how many friends do you have at school? And the guy says, I don't have friends. I don't make friends because I don't want to have to leave them again. And so I had him ask him, well, what do you feel walking the halls of Liberty High School with no friends? And the guy said, I feel alone. Remember, that's the most painful thing a person can experience. No connection. I feel alone. And then I had him ask, how do you deal with the pain of feeling alone? And this guy opens up in front of his grade 9 classes. I go home and I cut myself every day. And then he's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I said that in front of everybody. And he starts freaking out. And I just said to the class, hey, if you have more respect for him now, because he was open and honest, because that's what happens when you have connection. If you have more respect for him now, stand up. And the whole class stood up and started clapping for this guy. That's an expression of compassion towards the pain that they see this guy's in. They stopped. He calmed down. We kept going. I found out he had more pain. I found out he had issues with his sisters, a lot of conflict in the home there. And I realized that there's a lot of pain in this kid, this 9th grader. And so at the end of the class, I said, I think you all see the amount of pain that this guy's carrying. And if you don't want him to carry this bag of rocks, this burden on his back, if you're willing to say, I want to take one of those rocks from you today, stand up. And again, the whole class stood up, started clapping for this kid. He was tearing up. And they're saying, we don't want you to be in this kind of pain. So that's the vulnerability you get. Now, here's what's amazing.
Wow.
Because the brain is designed to empathize, sympathize, and act compassionately in that order. But when you don't have the empathy, which is the connection on, the sympathy happening, you will not have compassionate responses. What happened in that class is after we finished, I was talking to the teacher. The student was just getting up from his chair. A student from the circle came up to him and said, I have you in Spanish class after health class. Can I walk with you so you don't feel alone? This kid tuned in, said, I want to take care of you, to a grade 9, but he could have been called names for doing that, softy and stuff. But you can't be stopped from acting compassionately when you have connection with people. And compassion solves all the problems we have in our homes, and increasing compassion. It's really the way our brains are designed, is to act compassionately, but we must have that connection first. And so that's an example live.
That amazing. And now I'm going to ask you offline how to use it in groups, because I'm going to start coaching groups on digital wellness, basically. Question then, what, well, I guess which talk did you use in that scenario? Because
well, I just did what I do in counseling, where I just asked some general questions and I got to know the kid. I got to know the teen through the questioning. Like when I have a couple, I can just start right away and find out where the issues are.
Okay, so tell me something. We are told, and research tells us that, they're saying that kids are losing empathy because of video gaming and being online all the time and not creating connections, and not creating family connections. So how does your tool, I mean, is the empathy something we can regain? Is it a muscle? How do we teach our kids empathy? And in my own household, my son, I tested his strengths and empathy came actually low, but that's just how he is naturally. So, something would happen and he goes, Mom, I'm low on empathy. I'm like, I'm saying that's not an excuse. But most people probably would be higher on empathy than that. How do we train empathy in our kids? How do we teach our kids to be empathetic, kind, sympathetic?
Really good question.
And is it true that this stuff is making us less empathetic?
Absolutely. I think it's the time on those things. They prevent the connection that, empathy is caught, not taught. And so it's only through connected, joy-filled experiences with people where you get that sense that person's glad to be with you, that you can, then it's safe. If a person's glad to be with you, then it's safe for you and you can connect with them. If you don't have that sense that they're glad to be with you, if you think they're indifferent to you, going to reject you, angry with you, disappointed with you, any of those things that we often deliver, or I'm too overwhelmed as a parent to talk to you, that doesn't say I'm glad to be with you. And their brain decides to move more to the back where it's not relational. It's like, I got to take care of myself. And so we numb the pain and go to these devices and to numb the pain. So your brain.
Okay, question. I remember Oprah quoting all the time Maya Angelou saying, every child needs somebody to light up when they enter the room. And so I made that, I made it a habit, really. When my kids come in, I try. No, I don't get this every time. I drop the call. My kid is, no, I'm picking up my kid, my kids are coming home, whatever. And I try to receive them into the room, into, wherever we're meeting. And it's like, hey, you're here. And so I know that creates connection.
It does.
Even if they're like, whatever, or, but I know that it does. And even with friends, and I'm a connection person anyway. So when I see my friends, even though I just saw them an hour ago, it's like, hey, I receive people into that. So I think that would be a good tip to say, light up when your kids come in, when your spouse comes in. I've been in families where I've been sitting there with my friend and the husband comes home and they're like, they barely say hello, maybe, much less, I'm like, hey, hug your husband, go kiss him, right? Receive dad, right? And especially my husband works at home, but there's times when he's been working away, when he comes home, hey, dad's home, guys, he's been gone all day, come and receive him, welcome him, right? So that home is that place of connection.
That's where that has to be happening. My oldest daughter at home is 18. She works at Chick-fil-A and she can work long hours. And I'm teaching her exactly what you said. When you come home and you're going to meet your other sisters, what gift do you want to give them? And as parents, do we want to come in as the cop and tell them, hey, you did this wrong? Why are there shoes at the door? That was my big thing. 6 kids. Why are there 18 pairs of shoes at the door? What's going on?
6 kids!
Yeah, and I would take my 11-minute drive home back then to prepare myself I want to have joy in seeing my kids, and I want to see joy in their eyes that dad's home, not avoiding, not, oh no, dad's home. But if I'm not glad to see them and my wife and my kids aren't glad to see me, there's a problem I need to be working on. Now the empathy, and I'll disagree with Oprah. Who's Oprah anyways? But no, she's got a lot of good stuff. But we disagree a little bit on empathy maybe, but science has shown that empathy is actually feeling what the other person feels. So in 1/6 of a second, which is faster than we think, our core emotion comes out our eyes, and secondly, a little slower, out our tone to those people. And in 1/6 of a second, it comes in their eyes and hits mirror neurons at the front of your brain. And they're mirror because these neurons reflect exactly the input that came in. So if it's joy in your eyes and I'm glad to be with you, or I'm proud of you, or I'm excited to see you and hear your news, that'll hit their mirror neurons and they will feel it. You might have it this much in you, they'll feel it this much, but it's enough that their brain says this is safe, move closer. And then in 1/5 of a second, we start sympathizing, which is now I want to understand and hear and ask questions and know. And once you reach that, in another 1/5 of a second, a whole new circuitry turns on of compassion. And how do I respond compassionately to what I'm hearing that person say, whatever it is? And when you see that happening, life doesn't get any better. There's no higher level of functioning to reach, because our brains are designed to always act compassionately. Now, I'm going to talk.
Do we lose it? So are these kids losing it because they are online, because they're gaming, and the games are violent, or just all this input?
I'm going to put it on the parents. I'm going to put on the parents that saying those kids have had enough of a taste of not getting what they need from the parents as far as that joy in very early days before they can even hold a phone. So at actually 8 months, at 8 days old, a baby knows if what's coming in is what it needs and is life-giving or not. 8 days. So if, and no fault of mom's, but if mom had a tough delivery, any problems around that, stress, baby's underweight, has to be separated, things like that, that separation, the baby's not getting what it needs, and it kind of builds a wall up inside and says, I got to keep this stuff out. And then when I work with them as 40-year-old adults and they've got this built up, I got to get that taken down. When you're working with teenagers who, if parents are always frustrated, overwhelmed, not satisfied, if that's the message coming out those parents' eyes in 1/6 of a second, you know what? If I have the choice between a phone or engaging my parents, I'm going to go to that phone, and I'll break the rules to get to that phone, because for so long you haven't given me what I needed. And that child's too young to ask, right? So good parents know and figure out, what does my child need before the child asks, and gives it to them. And we know those kids need that emotional support and building up, and those messages of you're valuable, I enjoy you. There is no sin, character flaw, personality trait, problem, mistake you can make that's going to stop me from being glad to be with you. And together, I'm going to put my arm around you, and together you and I will look at the problem and solve it, rather than me look at you as you're the problem. Let me fix you, let me control you, let me discipline you, things like that. So I don't fault these kids very much for going to their devices. I don't think they've gotten what they've needed from parents, not as far as rules, but as far as relationship and connection. So they're going to connect somewhere else.
Okay, so what do we do? Let's tell mom, let's tell dad, where do we start? If we've lost that connection, or it's intermittent, it's off and on, where do we start?
Well, first, that's why I created this tool again. So what I see happening in my office can be in people's homes. And that would be the first thing. You don't need more information, so don't buy a book. You need a resource that is relational, because the damage and the disconnection has happened through unhealthy relationship patterns and experiences. So buy that resource and start using it as a couple. Use it with your teens, use it with your kids, use it as a family sitting around and listening. It's a great family night. Second thing is something you've already said, is prepare yourself through thinking about, what do I want to communicate to my kids when I see them out my eyes? Now your emotions are on the right side of your brain, and everything crosses over. So your strongest, you can communicate joy and I'm glad to be with you and you're just a delight out both eyes, but it's stronger out your left eye. So make left eye contact with whoever it is you're talking to, and it'll register stronger in their brain and their emotion.
What do you mean left eye contact? I mean,
look left eye to left eye. Yeah. Once you start doing it, you won't be able to stop, because it's just going to feel right. Yeah. Now, when you're upset with your child or your spouse, don't make eye contact, right? Because what I would do, here's my mistake. One of my mistakes as a young parent is I say to my kids, look at me. Look at me when I am telling you to clean your room, look at me. And I am burning adult level frustration into their brains, into their mirror neurons. And their brains aren't developed enough to handle my level of, because my level of frustration is because of stuff at work, traffic, bills, other kids, Rockies losing, things like that. And I'm dumping it into a little kid, and we need to reverse that. And now they can only handle so much of it. It's like tickling, where I've counseled people who their trauma was being tickled to death. So a good thing gone bad. Joy can be too much of a good thing. And so you got to look at them until they disconnect for a second, and you look away. But even kids will come back looking for that left eye, and then you come back. And that's actually building trust. It says, hey, when I'm overwhelmed, you're not going to keep coming at me, even if it's a good thing. So try and
you make me cry, because I do that all the time. Because I don't feel heard if they're not looking at me. I demand, look at me. Right. I'm talking to you. I need you to get this message. You didn't do this or didn't do that, or so. Okay, so you're saying in that moment, instead of saying look at me, then what do we do?
One thing I can do is say, I want to look at you. And then what do? They end up looking at you. Without you saying, look at me, I'm saying, I want to look at you. And that's a short pause for me to say, what do I want to communicate? When I say things that I really want them to get, I say, can I look in your eyes? And I just try and erase that phrase, look at me, rather more of like, can I have the privilege of looking at you in your eyes? And boom, an instant change. Like I'm talking about, these things in the brain happen faster than we can think at a sixth of a second. So it happens quick. We can make those changes quickly. The other thing is, when we're ready to have this, I think this is important face-to-face talk.
I didn't know this was a counseling session for me.
I'll send you a bill later.
I'm getting free counseling, I guess. I was like, what?
No, this is, I'm against information because I say people aren't ignorant, but I think there's some things here that people aren't aware of, and I'm happy giving this amount of information out there. But going that next level of actually building the connection, then that's where you need the tool. That's where you need practice. Here's something. Think of a person who loved you. They may be alive, they may be past, but your brain will change its chemistry and makeup to match the last time you were with that person. And when you're in that state of love, you can handle difficult people. So sometimes going into a conversation with a difficult family member, think of that person who loved you and spend a minute thinking about, where do you picture that encounter happening? What are the smells? What are the sights? What kind of lighting is there? Was there food? What were they saying? What was the look in their face? Then go and have the conversation with the child or spouse that you need to have it with. You're in a much better place for creating that connection. The problem is we often break that connection or sabotage it in the first 2 seconds, for sure. But we keep talking. And everything after that 2 seconds.
So our eyes and our tone are speaking way before anything,
Before anything else. And closeness, being too close can be scary, but about 3 feet to 18 inches is great for communicating. I want to be close to you and safe to you. So those are some simple things.
Yeah. When I got with my husband and my daughter, we got knee to knee facing each other, and we had the computer on the side. Right. And just scroll through the questions. Okay, so what do you have for our Mommy Talking Unplugged Family audience? If they go to meaningfultalk.com, what are they going to get?
I've always wanted to say this, and I've never been able to say this, and I already feel like I'm on the shopping network, but this is the best deal I've ever given anybody. So we have 30 talks for couples, 30 different topics. The first 10 are light. The topic is light. And the reason is we're not used to having this depth of connection. So we can't add a deeper topic on it. So the first 10 are light. Then there's 20 that you need to be talking about. As a counselor, I know couples aren't talking about them. And the more often they do talk about it, how preventative it will be for them going into counseling. And all the conversations are written that you can go back to that talk in a month and have that conversation about stress again, because 30 days from now, the stress is all going to be different. It's going to look different, but you're using the structure of these guided questions and music, and you're aiming for a 20-minute talk. There's up to 26 questions in some of these. Some of them are only 9 questions. Some of them go longer. At 20 minutes of connected conversation, there's a release of oxytocin that's equal to what's released during intercourse. So a very powerful bond can happen. So we're aiming for that. So there's those 30 talks, and normally that package is $100, which is a counseling session. And you got to say, how far am I going to get in a counseling session in one session if my spouse goes, if I can get them, and then I got to drive and babysitting and all that stuff. You've got this tool that you can use for years to come and strengthen the circuitry in your brain and perhaps never need counseling. So that package is $100. I have 20 parent and teen talks, which are just, I love them because some of my kids are teenagers right now. And the teen answers, sometimes the parents answering, there's just that mutual respect and friendship being built, but you're getting to know your teens and they want to be known, whether they're behind a device or not, they want to be known. That's the easy way. Those 20 talks are $80. And then there's 20 talks for children that start about age 5. You can start at 4 if maybe just rewording some things for them. You help them along, but from 5 to 12 or so, depending on your child, there's 20 talks for parents and teens. So that's 180 and 80, that's 260. I do that bundle for $200, but today there's a coupon called Unplugged Family. If you're buying that bundle of all 3 talks, it's $50 off. So it'll be $150, which in some cities is a counseling session, in some cities it's 2 counseling sessions, but you've got a tool that is the most powerful thing you'll ever own as far as building relationships. Stop buying books. Make us feel like we're doing something. I'm reading up. Oh yeah, I see me in the book. Oh, I see my teenage daughter in that book. Oh, I understand. Understanding doesn't help you connect any better. You need the experience. And so this is an experiential resource. $50 off today with the coupon code Unplugged Family. And
Unplugged Family separated, right? Unplugged.
No, together.
Sorry guys, together. I need to change that. Okay, I'll change.
Okay, I should have told you that. Yeah.
Unplugged Family.
I didn't know what a space would do in the coupon code, so I put it together. You know, I'm here in Colorado Springs and Fort Carson, and we've got a unit of Green Berets down here, and they had 5 family suicides in 18 months. So it's either spouses or children killing themselves. 5. And it got serious, and so they invited me in to talk to this group of guys right before Christmas and give them this tool. And they said, we want to give all these guys this tool to use over their Christmas break so they can go home and connect with their family and see where they're at and build those relationships, because in all those 5 suicides, they said we had no idea there was any issues with the person, that they were even struggling. They didn't know, they're so disconnected. And this was an easy way for them. You know, being gone so long or in training or deployment, to come in, easy tool to use. And if you have questions on, you know, I think my situation might be really difficult, how am I going to use it in this situation? Just email me off my website, counselorkeith.com, and I'll give you some tips on how to use it, because you just want to get using it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is amazing. Now tell me, why have we lost this? Where did it go that we need a tool? I mean, we need it. I'm telling you, it's powerful. I didn't know how to do this. I mean, you know, I've experienced those moments of connection, but not just, hey, let's do this, and automatically we're going to be connected. So where did we lose that ability as parents to do that? I think
stress in life always makes connection difficult. You know, it's occupying our mind. Any worry. You know, you're not in the present. They say we spend 5% of our time in the present. The other 95 is either thinking of something down the road or something that happened. And, you know, and here's how quickly being present can solve a situation. A few months ago, I was looking in the mirror, getting ready, and I was mad at my wife. And it was about something from the day before. And I was mad, and I was feeling it. And I thought, you know what? I'm alone in the bathroom. I'm just brushing what little hair I have. Nothing is happening to me to make me mad. I am choosing to be mad because I'm thinking back to what happened. I want to get present. And as soon as I became present, the frustration and the anger left. And I'm working on that more and more. And this tool makes us present because we don't have to think about anything else. It gives the right questions at the right time in the right order. And all we have to do is listen, like, oh, what a load off my shoulders. we can listen. But stress and fear, biblically speaking, the greatest command is to love. The most frequent command is don't fear, 365 times. Why shouldn't we fear? Because fear is the back of the brain. Relationship and love is the front of the brain. You can't be two places at one time. So the Bible says, here's the greatest thing to be aiming for is to love. And the way to get there is you got to get rid of fear. Let me tell you, 365 times, don't be afraid, don't worry, because it takes us out of relationship. And fear is an enemy of relationship. So stress is usually around fears of what will that person do? What will they say? How am I going to pay the bills? So I think our culture has become loaded with stress. I think news and media, what sells on websites is sensational stories. And the more crazy story you can put on a news site, the more people will click through, and there'll be more ads and they can make more money. So we're bombarded with fear, and we tend to live in that more, and we don't aim for love. And so I think busyness, stress, fear, that all keeps us from connecting. And we need voices like Unplugged Family to say, unplug from that stuff. There's a way that you're actually created to live. And when you experience it in relationship and love, remember I said everything else in your central nervous system comes in line. So your immune system will be stronger. You won't get sick as much. Your brain chemistry will balance out. Perhaps you won't need some of the medicines you might be on. You'll delay gratification. You won't be acting out in addictions and things. If joy and relationship really runs the brain. So I talked about the brainstem being weak, right? The right orbital prefrontal cortex, it's right front behind your eye, is that part of your brain where relationship and joy and music turn it on and stimulate it. And we've got to get that strong. So this tool, So this tool strengthens it because there's music, there's experiences of joy, and there's closeness to another person. When that is weak, 4 things, the next level down, when that turns off, like my daughter's brainstem would turn off, the next level in your brain is where fear, anger, food, and sex are. And those will run your life in negative ways. But when that part of your brain is turned on, it says, hey, I'm in relationship. I know I have love. So I'm going to get angry because what you did was wrong, but I'm not going to use my anger towards you. And I'm going to be afraid of that deer jumping on the road because that's life and death. But I'm not going to be afraid of bringing up a topic with you because that's not life and death. And so all those, I'm going to use food for celebration and nutrition, not for numbing pain. I'm going to use sex for procreation and recreation. I'm not going to use it outside of proper relationships and in abusive ways. But we have to have this part of our brain saying, remember, you're in relationship, so use these the right way. Otherwise, we go crazy. So we got to strengthen that part of the brain.
I have to agree that I experienced some of all that you said last week. I signed on a dotted line to start a TV pilot for Unplugged Family. It's coming somewhere, sometime. Good. But almost as soon as I did, I froze in fear. Like I was paralyzed, and it affected for weeks. It affected everything and everybody in my life. And I was a week away from shooting this pilot when I ran into your tool. And because I was begging God, help me. I just I mean, I'm thinking being on TV, oh my gosh, I got to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. And I could not control my sweet cravings, blah, blah, blah. I mean, everything was a mess, okay? Because I was literally, and I knew it. We did the stress talk, and I had a literal breakthrough in it where I realized, wait a minute, I just need to do my part. God can do his part. I'm not, you know what I mean? I just had certain revelations, and literally I took my kids out on an outing. They ate their stuff, pizza and this and that. I didn't touch that. They went out for ice cream. I didn't touch that. And I was like, and I was hungry. But I was like, you know what? I don't want that. I don't need that. Like, that doesn't happen. I was like, I knew something had shifted in my brain. Like I went several days with no sugar, no caffeine, no dairy, no carbs, no this. I was like, what is going on? And maybe this explains it, because I couldn't explain it. I was like, my mom's like, it's just a decision. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm sorry. Right. A lot of us would be in a different shape. It was just a decision. So you've got something for sure.
Yes. So people with addictions, whether it's, to sugar, because when we're in pain, and I said there's 5 levels of pain, when we're in pain, sugar will numb the pain, whether it's white sugar, whether it's sugar and alcohol, whether it's tobacco, which is 97% sugar that you're breathing in that smoke. So sugar will numb that pain. Yeah. Sugar will numb that pain of being disconnected. Power will numb that pain. So you can be like a violent person. You could be controlling, buying power. You might go and buy stuff because it gives you a sense of power. But then as soon as you buy it, you feel like, oh, there's no satisfaction in it. So we go to those things to numb the pain of not being connected. And we get into addictions. And there can be hard, deep addictions into drugs and things. And I tell anybody, if you've got a strong habit or an addiction that you can't break, that you've tried for 3 days to break it, stop trying to break it and pursue joy-filled connection, because that's the top part of the brain. And remember, when that top part is on, you don't do what gratifies. You do what satisfies. And satisfies has no long-term consequences to it. It's always going to be good. But that part of the brain has to be functioning. And that part of the brain is only strengthened through input of music, input of a joy-filled experience with somebody, and close proximity, affectionate touch with a person. We've got to strengthen that part of the brain. You can go on TED Talks. You can hear all kinds of information on the importance of the prefrontal cortex in relationship, but those people will tell you what to go and do. This tool has you doing it. It's so different from anything else. And immediately, I know, another mutual friend, Ed, has talked about couples he's used it with, and the spouse will say, my heart turned totally different direction for my spouse after one talk. And it can often happen that way. So powerful tool. Yep.
Powerful tool. So guys, thank you so much for being here. So if you want to schedule a session with Keith, you can go to counselorkeith.com and schedule an online session. He is in Colorado Springs, right?
Correct.
Well, you could do a lot, in person if you live in Colorado Springs. I have friends in Colorado Springs. Yes. Or you can do it online anywhere in the world. And also, if you want to get the Meaningful Talk, go to meaningfultalk.com to get those talks. You have parent and teen talks, parent and child talks, couples talks. I'm going to use it with my friends. Tell me, which talks should I use with my friends, by the way? Because I have, my best friend is 35 years. I have long time friends. And I have some friends where there's been some distance, things have happened or said or done, or which talks should I use with a friend, somebody who I have a deep friendship with, but there might be issues.
Yeah, nothing designed specifically for that, though the first 9 of the couples, because again, the topic doesn't matter. So the 20 deeper ones are about your marriage relationship and expectations in the marriage and that kind of stuff. The first 9 are just about, I want to hear what are your thoughts on health and fitness, wealth and work, high points in life, low points in life, places you've been in life. But there's some zinger questions in there where a deeper connection really happens and hearts open and things. So those first 9 are perfect setting for friends to sit down and do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know we're going to have you again.
Okay.
Because we have lots to talk about. And we can, go into more of this, digital wellness space, I guess, and how to, maybe tips or things that we can do of unplugging and connecting with our families. So thank you so much, guys. Thanks for being
very welcome.
I remember to go can you see that? Unplugged Family, like the Unplugged Family page. You can join, and we have an Unplugged Family group, and maybe Keith and I are working on coming up with something so that the people in our group can enjoy a little deeper stuff that we're talking about and relating to connection. And so you can go there. If you have any questions, you can message me. You can message me or post on the comments. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Unplug and connect.